One day you notice your friend is struggling. They begin missing a few days of class and coming in late. Then they start missing whole weeks, not showing up at all. This goes unspoken as they continue to skip more and more classes. They slowly begin to fade away until one day they're gone. January 14th, 2017. The day I disappeared. My family and I moved to the Bay of Plenty around the time I had just turned 10 years old. This was a year or two after we had moved back to Wellington, where I was born, which was around a year after we had moved to the middle of the country, where the housing was cheaper. I went to a primary school in the Bay of Plenty, where I met people who would go on to become some of my best friends. I did well in class and was looking forward to the coming years of intermediate school. In my first year, I achieved perfect attendance and was at the top of my class. In the second year, I met people who would take me out of my comfort zone and give me the foundation to help me grow into the person I am today. Then along came high school. Now, this isn't a story of having to cope with profound bullying or failing to adapt to a new learning environment. In fact, I would say my first year of high school was a resounding success in every sense of the word. It wasn't until my second year of high school that I began skipping classes, staying home some days, to eventually staying home most days. So what exactly happened? I have no simpler way of putting it than boredom. Day in and day out, something wasn't working for me. By the end of a simple 9 to 3 school day, I was craving anything else. I began dreading having to get to school every day. I would squirm in my seat. I would do anything to excuse myself from even having to show up. I started staying up later, which made me oversleep. Well, I've missed these classes, I would say to myself, so there's no point going in for the rest of the day. Well, I missed Thursday, I extrapolated, so there's no point going in on Friday, and so on, and so on. What exactly was I doing with all of this extra time? If I can be perfectly honest, I don't even remember. I probably played games and watched YouTube videos all day. Such an unimportant waste of time, I can't even recall. And then, tragedy struck. Eviction. The properties along our street were beginning to get sold in the range of about $1 million. So was it any wonder that our landlord would look for any reason to get us out? I could see the cracks starting to show. I could feel everything starting to crumble from underneath us. While we were looking for places and in between moving, we decided to take a trip that would end up changing the course of my entire life. For maybe a week or so, we took a road trip to Wellington. Spent some days with people we hadn't seen in a long while. I was tinkering with a piece of music software at the time, scouring the internet for some interesting sounds, when I came across a free synthesizer called Piano Vintage 1984. I played around with its presets and started working on a simple rhythm, sprinkling in a few extra elements but keeping the production sparse. I hadn't made a song in over a year at that point. I just couldn't muster up the want or need. This was a breath of fresh air the likes of which I had never experienced before. For just a brief moment, I felt kind of free. But like all good things, that moment eventually faded, life went back to the monotonous background noise I had become accustomed to. Prospects down in Wellington overshadowed those at home so greatly that I began to skip days again. Not as frequently, but even one is too many. I talked about it with my family and we decided, fuck it. We're going to leave everything behind and start basically from scratch. Living up to my name, Phoenix. From that point, I started holding myself more accountable when it came to attendance. An overall good thing is we were approaching assessments. Despite around 60% attendance, I was able to end the year with a special certificate, an endorsement of excellence, given to maybe 30 or 40 of the most dedicated students who had put time and effort into getting these incredibly high marks. And there I was, as confused as everyone else. After the final leaving ceremonies, there was an optional crafts week of sorts, where people would in groups get to make something together. I of course had no interest in such an event, but I made a promise to a friend. A promise that for all 3 days I would be there, on time. And I was. Across all 3 days, we laughed, had fun, worked hard, and experienced it all together. But not at one point did I tell anyone I was moving. I was afraid. Afraid to disappoint my friends. Afraid to disappoint my teachers. Afraid to disappoint everyone. So I kept it to myself. On the last day I was walking home. I still remember the subtle, salty smell of the Bayside air, the warmth of the soft summer breeze, the golden sky as the sun was setting. This was the last time I would see these people, the friends I had known and loved for nearly 6 years. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. And I was gone.